Hi, my name's Jim Fearn. I work for Guide Fly Fishing. This weekend I'm at Angling Active fly fishing event. And I'm here really to talk about the new RIO MDC kits. Ultimately the MDC or MDC stands for multi-density control, and these are the new replacements for what was the RIO Scandi Versatip. The Scandi Versatip was without a doubt RIO's longest salmon line, I want to say, in production. And highly versatile. Massive improvements on the MDC. It is still a multi-tip shooting head. Multi-tip by definition simply means that the tip forms an integral part of the overall weight and length of this particular line system. There's two versions of this. One is the long and one is the short. The short has 12-foot sink tips as opposed to the long, which has 18. And the main reason to decide whether you want to go for the long or the short is down to the actual length of the rod. Personally, rods up to 12'6", I would opt for the short version. And once you start getting to 13', 6 especially, then I would be going to the 18-foot tip version of the long. So the kit comprises of slick shooter shooting line. Each kit has different diameter of shooting line, so obviously you get a precise match. We'll actually get the head itself and a wallet with 4 tips ranging from a floater right down to a 235 inches per second. And there is an additional buy of a 357 sink tip also. One of the improvements of the MDC over the old Versatip, and frankly a lot of multi-tips that are out there, is this more precise match of the grains per foot from the front of the head to the start of the sink tip. RIO really nailed this now, so it is, like I say, it's a lot more precise, and that's one of the big things of this line, which is noticeable when it's in flight. Typically with things like multi-tips, there's often a bit of a clunk, a bump as the loop's running through it, whereas this is so seamless now in flight. It really does cast like a full floater. The three main sizes of this are the 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9 plus. Another good positive of the MDC system is that it's nice and easy colour coded with the 3 different sizes. In this instance of the 10, you can see how it's a blue to match the tips. So following on from the introduction of the MDC on the bank, one of the biggest, I suppose you could say, concern really that salmon fishers have with the MDC initially, prior to them casting it, is the length of the sink tips. It is quite daunting to some salmon fishers, that extra 3 feet now turning the sink tip into 18 feet. People think that it's too much sinking stuff on the front end to actually manage. When in reality, when most people cast it, they're quite surprised. A common statement that people invariably make is that it doesn't feel like an 18-foot sink tip on the end. It feels much shorter. One of the few things that I notice teaching a lot of spey casting is providing you basically obey a couple of essential rules really, and that's anything sinking, but certainly with longer sink tips. And quite simply, it's to keep the whole thing moving. So it really does pay to watch the end of this line, i.e. the tip section, and just prior, especially with a roll cast as one example, just prior to that coming to a stop is pop when you want to hit that cast forwards. I mean, it pays to keep your eye on that section of fly line anyway, for things like alignment as an example. By following that line down the line, that's going to avoid things like collision loops. But certainly in order to deal with a sinking line, we can't really give it a second. If it was a full floater, and as an example I'm pausing now, you can see how it just doesn't lift out the water. So again, we've really got to keep this line system moving, and then it does feel like a full floater. Now that, for me, as I was saying earlier, this is like 2 seasons. I was lucky enough for 2 seasons to be in the development stage of this line, and I've been fortunate enough to have fish on the 7, 8, 9 and 10 versions. As far as I'm concerned, it's the best salmon fishing line that RIO have produced. As said earlier, it is replacing the Versatip, but some of the things that make this goat so good in my opinion is the more precise match of grains per foot from the back of from the end of the head to the start of the sink tip. And this really is quite clever on from Rio's position, because what this gives is a really seamless flight in the air. And as said, it pretty much looks like it's a full floating head. It hasn't got that bump, which is typical with multi-tip systems. The line performs equally well with waterborne spey casts such as snap tees and double speys, with a big advantage that we can let that sink tip dig in, thus providing us a little bit more hold when we want to apply even more force. And because of the extra length of the actual line system, it performs really well with casts, aerial anchor casts, such as snake rolls and single speys. Like I say, that extra length in the tip really provides a little bit more of a positive anchor with them particular casts.